Y'all ready for this?
You beat me to it. It always feels very natural too, like they just start. I don't know how you do that.
I don't know either. I mean, I think they just say, hey, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should do. This is the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is the first of one, at least, episodes of something called a Heartland Ballerina podcast. We don't have a name for it yet. We'll come up with it soon. Tim Allen is here. He goes by Timlightyear, though. That's why he wears the stars on his shirt there.
Yeah, it's the if you're Tim Allen, you can't be Tim Allen because there's already a Tim Allen, so you have to be something else.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to do anything, but you know what I mean.
You have to be something completely different from Tim Allen, like, named after like one of his characters or something.
Right.
Totally unrelated.
Right. Cleverly on the fringe of relation, but not too deep in it, like using my, birth name, my God-given name.
God, who would have the gall to do that?
Right. I got really lucky that I was born, and then shortly thereafter, Tim Allen figured out that smuggling large amounts of cocaine was probably a bad move, and got into acting somehow, and got mega famous on Home Improvement, and now here we are.
Yeah.
Nothing happened in between that.
You wouldn't be here without that.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way. I wouldn't be anywhere without Tim Allen either. This one is
the real Tim Allen.
Yeah, the real Tim Allen, the out of this world producer who made this record happen, made Heartland Ballerina what it was. It's weird to think we haven't known each other for 2 years, even yet.
But it feels like we've known each other forever.
Somewhere in the stars, somewhere in the cosmic waves.
Yeah, we were hanging out, I don't know, a couple months ago, talking about how this all kind of came to be, and it's weird to think that we were at a song swap, and like the week after, we just started making the record.
It was like very soon after.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you this before, but like the months leading up to that, it was like, I want to say that was either late March or April of 22. And I'd gone to Key West for the first time that year in January. And like, I had a legit mini panic attack at lunch with my mom and my uncle down in Florida, where I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to get all this stuff done. I need to record songs. I need to go on tour. I need to, I was freaking out. But I was like, straightened it out in a sense. I was like, okay, just like, remember you need a producer when you go out. Don't worry so much about finding them. Just when you're talking to people, if they mention, I'm a producer, or this guy produced this thing for me, or whatever, I went here, and just keep track and just like, start to live in it a little bit instead of worrying about Googling the right producer. And that's what it was like when we sat down. I didn't know your producer when we sat down on stage, though. I didn't even know who you were. I looked up on your Instagram before the night, which was like, of course, booked the same day.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't know much about you, but it was like sitting on stage with you and hearing your songs was my first intro to you as a person, which I actually loved, instead of it being, you being as a producer, because I got to feel you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that situation definitely helped, at least I assume helped you kind of get a better grasp on not just the production side, but just the music in general that I kind of do. But it's funny that you say not long before that you were freaking out and having a panic attack, because when we started working on the album, I was like, holy crap, this dude is like the most put together, organized artist I've ever worked with. And like, I'm like nervous about how organized he is, because I'm not nearly this organized with anything that I'm doing. And you're over here like, I was having a freak out because I didn't know what anything was going on. And you show up with like 30 songs, 4 different Dropbox folders that are all, charts with every song. No artist has, like, it's very rare that an artist comes to me and is like, oh yeah, here, we'll just pull up the chart, and oh, we need to we need to make an edit on the fly. Cool. We'll just make the change and upload a new chart, and like everything's good. So it's super strange to hear, and we have talked about it some before, but it's super strange still now to hear you say that you were freaking out about it, because that was not my experience at all.
I mean, I feel pretty good about my organization skills, but it's like, I feel like we always are like that. I feel like there's always like we try our best to present ourselves the best way because we're earnest about it. But, we see what's going on underneath, and sometimes it does come to a boil like it did for me at that time. But like, I also do feel like even though I felt like that before I met you, after sitting down with you, I felt more comfortable to begin with. I think if I was meeting with someone who I met through like just as a producer, didn't know anything about them, maybe all I knew was like their credits, which is intimidating when all you know is, well, they worked with that person, I hope I'm like that person, and all you know is that, and you walk in and you're nervous. But I knew you as like, oh, this is a guy who's made beautiful songs, plays guitar well, and has a good knack for producing too, and I bet he's got an ear. So I was like, I felt like I was in good company from the start, whether or not it was it wasn't intimidating at all.
Well, first of all, thank you. I think that there's a lot of reasons that I write songs and perform live and have my own solo project, but one of the greatest benefits to that, I think, is I do think it makes artists feel more comfortable, because I go through all the same crap that artists go through. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it's more relatable. You know what I mean? Or helps be more relatable in some way.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, and like I said, like I was looking for a producer at that time when we met, but I was like very like just pleasantly surprised when you said, oh, I produce. Like that's how I do what I do mostly, or what I do most of my time.
yeah.
And I was like, that's great. Like, I mean, when we sat on stage, I was thinking, oh, like a new friend who's a songwriter, that could be cool. But then you said that, and I was like, okay, if he produces the way he writes, I just want to sit down and listen to my songs together, you know, just to see what that goes.
Sure. I mean, I think it's obviously that was kind of the inception of the whole thing, but I think throughout the entire process, this album was it just kind of unfolded in a lot of ways. I mean, that not to diminish the level of work that went into it from all parties, but like there was definitely a lot of like happy accident type things that happened making this record.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of trust built early on through some of those early interactions between us, through when we started adding more pieces in to the process. Obviously the team, we'll talk about everybody at some point, but the list is honestly so long, how many people made this thing happen.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of trust early on. At least that's what I felt. I'm sure you felt the same way, but I felt like, okay, I can release myself into this creation a little bit and not feel like I'm going to get steered away from me in the process. I'm going to get stewarded towards something that's beautiful together. And I felt that early on, for sure. And when it was like, that's where I say it's like, that was letting it unfold. It doesn't mean the album made itself,
right? But
it's like letting it unfold is and we've said this before, letting the songs tell us who they're supposed to be.
Right. Well, to that same point, I mean, I think that as we were going through the process, I mean, obviously I didn't know you very well. I mean, we basically just met when we started making the record not long after that initial show. And so like I knew based off of your songs and going through the catalog that like you knew what was going on, but like I definitely felt like there was a lot of trust for sure, but it was like every time we had a date on the calendar and we were working on the songs, it was like I was able to release some of my production responsibilities and some of the things that I have to do with other artists, because like, oh, cool, Tom can just sit down and write this goofy organ thing and I don't have to worry about that as much. you know? So I think it was definitely a two-way street in that regard of like, you know, you were able to trust that I was going to help you get to wherever it was going to be, but I was able to trust that you were going to be able to do something cool and take that pressure off.
It's funny too. I can see why, like, I remember telling you in our first meeting at your house, I was like, you know, I'm still keeping my options open.
Yeah. I remember that.
Like, and at the end of that meeting though, I was like, I'm not going to go out to some other studio after this. Like, I like this guy.
And it's funny too, because I remember repeatedly saying like, you know, I think you should do your due diligence, you know, like go out there and see what else is available, man. But, you know, just let me know. And I was just, I feel like I told Tay like, yeah, I really hope this Tom guy ends up working over here because I think it would be a really cool project. Like,
oh yeah. I had no plans to see anybody else.
Cool.
I mean, I was like 85% of the way there after just meeting you, but then hanging out at your house, especially because I got to meet Tay that day, and like Freddie, I think was there that day because he must have come back. It was like in the afternoon.
mm-hmm.
But the vibe at Shadowwood also was a big part of the process too. Seeing your Beatles figurines prominently displayed in your control room, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Did he put these up just for me? He does this to all his clients.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan Allen, for giving me those when I was a 12-year-old. She was like, we should decorate your room. Like, how do you want to do your room? I was like, I just love the Beatles. Like, let's just put a bunch of Beatles stuff up. And she found those at I don't know where she found them, but one day Fred will open those boxes and they'll go from being worth $18 to being worth $4, or worth nothing after he slimes them. Who knows? You know.
Well, slimes him? How old do you think he's going to be?
It could be any day now.
Any day. He's got his eyes on him.
Yeah, certainly. Everything's a toy to Fred. But yeah, bringing up the Shadowwood thing, it's as I'm going to this next phase of my studio, you know, operating a studio thing, there's a component of it where I'm super excited about the next chapter of that. Not that this podcast is about that, but I feel like,
you know, do a little self plug.
Yeah, well, it's I'm trying to land the plane eventually, but I think that there was with all the obstacles that came with Shadowwood, I think there was a charm that, and there was a limitation that forced us to do stuff unconventionally. And I think that led us to a lot of cool places that had we been in some big studio, we probably wouldn't have landed in the same places.
Yeah, well, it's hard to think of that in the moment. Like, you don't want to think about but we've talked about that with just songs. It's like boxes during the creative process can really accelerate what you do because you have these little guardrails. And yeah, like, I mean, you had everything we really needed to do, at least from my opinion. But yeah, it's not like the whole room was super treated, and it's not like, you know, you got to kind of jimmy that door to get it shut with a snake through it. You know, that was something fun.
Yeah.
But like, I think vibes come out a lot in the songs that we made, and they certainly came out during the just experience of the sessions, you know, and the way that you were able to control the space and the way that everyone who came into it felt like they could just tap right into it. It didn't feel, you know, some studios do have the drawback of feeling a little sterile.
Yeah.
You know, so it can be hard to get the charm, like you said, that charm to come through in the songs. But just when people come in with a smile on, they always came in with a smile on there, and they'll come in with a smile on the next phase too.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
No, I'm not concerned about it, but it's, I don't know. It's the whole bittersweet thing. I mean, but I think that to bring it back to the album too is like, I think everyone that we brought in on the project, like no one was like scoffing at what Shadowwood was, you know, like Clifton comes down and like we build this super goofy makeshift vocal booth and no one is like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Like everybody's just like, cool, this is what we're doing, and like it's working. And so, you know, no one was pretentious about any part of this album, and I think that shines through.
Well, like, in the vocal booth, like, look, we had enough stuff figured out for that we got it was dialed in. It wasn't like a studio booth, but sounded like it trapped the sound, but it felt like it was almost like we built a little fort, like we were kids.
Right, right.
And like there's something to that I think it was really important throughout the whole process. It's the fact that Freddie is there hanging out with us,
Yeah.
time to time. You're a family man, and we could kind of feel like we were kids playing around with toys. It's just the toys are, your expensive microphones, and but we can feel like we can create, like we're just in this sandbox, and the songs can be fun first and then serious second.
Yeah.
To me, that was really important, and I think that came through, like especially when we first started hanging out in the very beginning. I'd been because I'd been to other studios, like some well-known Texas studios.
Sure.
And pleasant for sure, but it's different when, I don't know, it's different when you're going there like, okay, I'm going here to try to make this a thing, versus it didn't feel like we ever tried to make it a thing. It just was a thing. We hit it off.
Well, and I mean, I think that even the songs themselves, like, sure, we had certain visions about certain components of it, but I think, like, I mean, how many songs had three or four different lives throughout the process from the beginning to where they ended up now? It's like there was enough structure and to land somewhere, but there wasn't so much structure that we missed out on something. I don't think we missed out on anything.
No, we did not leave stones unturned in this whole process.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think, I was just, as you were mentioning that, I was trying to think like what song, if any, was kind of stayed the closest to what it was when it first came. I think part of me thinks maybe like something like Empty Seat, but there were some changes in there too that, even the simplicity of like doing like the entrance on the second beat of all the verses,
right,
that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Changes up the way that enters into the song. So I don't know if there's any song that like came in and just stayed put. And I love this with songwriting. I know some artists feel a little bit differently about it, but like I love that you were as open as I am to like deconstruct a song, because we have the faith we'll build it back. We can do that.
Right. Well, and I think it's also important to remember that like 9 times out of 10, you started somewhere that's good enough. So like, even if we explore all this stuff and we end up back where we started, that's still a good place to be, And I think that a lot of artists forget that, like, or they just get hung up on the idea that like, well, I'm a good songwriter, so why do you need to change my songs? And it's like, well, just because we need to change something doesn't mean that you are a bad songwriter or that your song is bad. It just means it could be better. So why limit yourself? I just had a meeting with this dude and I'm like, well, this is the service that I offer, and this is the thing that I'm trying to do whenever I'm making a record with someone or recording a song with someone. And he's like, I've already spent all this time making sure that everything is perfect. And I'm like, you're already wrong if you feel that way,
What is perfect?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you're already wrong if you're considering a song can be perfect.
Right. It's like a song is a living, breathing thing that could have endless iterations. I mean, covers, acoustic versions, just a string quartet of the song. Endless iterations of a song. And to think that your song is perfect, I just feel bad for someone if that's how they feel.
Yeah. I mean, I think of creativity as this like weird well that we're all tapped into, but like it comes to us in different ways. And it has a lot to do with where our mind is, like how we were raised, or like the environments we're in. Like creativity is this weird connection to the universe that is hard to pin down. But I think when you tell me I have this idea, or I think this needs to change, or we should try a different arrangement, or whatever the thing is, I think of it as, oh, this idea is arriving to me not through the channels of my own brain's creativity, but through a different channel. But it's all arriving from the same source.
Sure.
And that's why there's this chemistry when you're creating with someone that you have such good chemistry with. That's why I think it feels so strong, because it is coming from that shared source. And you're like, oh, like that. I'm not saying it was my idea, but it's almost like it feels like an idea that I would have come up with
Sure.
some other life or some other path or at some other time. And that was like between you and me, that was where I felt a lot of chemistry, because when you would come up with a good idea, a lot, or any idea really, but it would feel like an idea like, yeah, that, yes, I did. I would never have been able to verbalize that or thought of that really, but that's exactly what the song was calling for.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's also, you and I look at those moments as opportunities, not problems to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not to say that there aren't problems to solve as you're making a record. Like, sure, there are. Like, oh, we've got to edit this thing, or oh, we've got to make this arrangement change. Like,
Yeah.
sure, you can view those things as problems, and that's fine. But like, in terms of, at the very least, in terms of like the song itself, lyrically, or the arrangement, or melodically, or whatever it is, like when someone has an idea, or even if you just say, hey, this isn't good enough, that's not, hey, this isn't good enough, and that's a problem. It's, hey, this isn't good enough, and we have an opportunity to make it really awesome. So I feel like that attitude was super present throughout the whole process, and there were very few times where those moments would come up and it wasn't like exciting, and I can count on probably one hand. I could definitely count on one hand, and probably wouldn't need all of my fingers to count the amount of times that there was like a heated, not even a heated moment, but just like
Some frustration,
like some sort of turmoil of
Yeah.
any kind. You know what I mean? Which
Well, I think
was great.
one thought I had on the idea of problem and opportunity, and there are problems that come up, but I think the biggest problem that comes up is when you have multiple opportunities and now you have to figure out how to get them all.
Sure.
That's a problem.
Sure.
And it's not a bad problem at all, because it's like, oh, now we created all these great ideas that weren't in the original, but how are we going to make them all work now? And
Right.
that requires some thinking, technical, like, there's a lot of dominoes. If I put this here, then that domino knocks that over, and I don't know if that'll flow. And there's a lot that becomes a problem. I think that, to me, if I remember some, specific times, like I would also think maybe this many fingers,
Right.
at best. But it was because we had a bunch of ideas, and now we're like, all right, now what? Like, we want all this,
Right.
and we want to have it all.
Yeah. Particularly one particular moment I can think of that was one of those was My Own Friend. Like that song maybe more than any of the other songs, I think had the most evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with each new evolution, there was another layer of us trying to piece it all together and figure out where it was all supposed to land. And then there was that it was like a week before or a day before we sent it to mix or whatever, where we added in this entire breakdown halftime moment, and we were going through like trying out all these variations of that moment, and I was like, well, I really want this thing, I really care about this thing happening, and you're like, yeah, but we really got to have this thing to happen. And that was one of those moments. It wasn't even turmoil, it was just like, okay, if we put this here and we move this here and we do blah 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 blah, then we can have it all. And and that was one of those moments in particular that was like that, but also was one of the more rewarding moments throughout the whole record, for me at least, because that song, I struggled with that song from the very beginning up until we got pretty much to that point of being like, I'm still not sure that we've done enough. And then when we got through that whole thing, I was finally like, I am now fully in love with this song, at least this iteration, like where we are with this iteration, I'm fully in love with this now.
Yeah, that was a song that broke down really early on, and I don't mean broke down like a car breaks down, but we broke it down to its pieces early on, and because it was when I brought that in, it was definitely a straight up almost Tom Petty riff,
Right.
Rip,
Yep.
just it's the same riff the whole song, and that's the vibe, and it's just gonna be guitar the whole time, and we stripped it down, and of course that was the process where we were doing bass and drums at the beginning, but I wasn't playing the guitar. We were messing around with your synthy boy
Right.
there.
Right.
And, you know, we were trying to find a sound that worked, but I was talking to Zach about this just before we started, but I was like, I don't love this synth sound here on this, you know, what is that called again?
It's a Korg mini log.
Right. So, but I was like, it was faith. It was trust. It was like, we're getting something, like whether it was just in like the drum part, even like early on, which didn't change, like that verse part.
Right.
We're kind of clicking on the sides of the drum and, you know, like that was already, I was like, okay, that's cool enough that wherever we build from that, we might just take some time.
Right.
You know, but, and that's was also a great part of this process, was like your willingness to take that time.
Right. Well, and because there was so many songs, there was also that layer of balance. Like, okay, how many straight rock and roll songs can we have? And like, obviously there's no good answer to that question, but I think that because of the way that we went about the album, it was like, okay, let's not just, like you said at the beginning of this, like, let's not just let every song be what it is right now. Let's see what it can be. And My Own Friend, It Ain't Right, like several others, like ended somewhere so far beyond obviously my initial thought of the song, but also where I thought they could even possibly go. And I think that specifically with My Own Friend, I was putting a lot of faith not only in us, but I was putting a lot of faith in Drew with that synth sound, because I was like, look, I don't have the toys that we need here to do what I think this can be, but I know where we can get access to the toys. And when we took the song to Drew's, I'm pretty sure there was bass, drums, and vocals and that synth, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And it came back, and it was when we brought it back to Shadow It was like, okay, like this song now has an identity that it did not have before.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Getting the CP70, that lushness of that, it finally let the song breathe, in my opinion. And that song, it's like there's a deep emotional weight in that song, but you feel enveloped by it now with the way it came out, and it doesn't feel like it's like shouting at you or like driving at you. You're like, I don't know. For me, it feels almost like an out-of-body experience where you just can settle into the stories of it and see yourself in them because of the sound. It's working together.
Right. Yeah, the personification of the words through the textures and through the music. I think the vocoder helps with that as well.
That was a lot of fun to do too. When I came to you last year, it was not like, we're going to make a, 80 synth vocoder song on here. One of these is going to be that.
Right.
I think I probably said like, there'll probably be synth.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about synth.
Yeah. And there is a literal shit ton of synth on this album.
Oh yeah. It's great.
Which is great. But okay. So speaking of the vocoder thing, like that's another one of those moments where it's like, we didn't even have a vocoder until like a week before we sent that song to mix.
Yeah. I came back from tour, my Key West trip in January of this 2023. And RG had it.
He had gotten it for Christmas.
Right. So,
and it was, and we were messing around with that song, trying to land. Then also, I think that I could be wrong about the timeline of this, but I think the vocoder thing happened before the halftime thing.
Yeah, I want to say we did get into that. I want to say we got into that halftime thing after we did the vocoder, because we also like started to venture into Splice to get answers too late in the process. I think It Ain't Right was driving that.
That's the other thing that's cool about this record too, is like I can track like some of my own personal producer growth through the process of making your album, like getting Splice and like, just like figuring out how to utilize that and a ton of other things too. But like the Splice one is a big indicator of like, oh, a lot of this stuff went from here to here once we had that tool.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was, how many months would we actually consider the whole process? It's got to be 18 or 16 or something like that. The producer maybe, how long was the producing of it? Maybe 14 months. I mean, when did we stopped sending stuff to, everything was in mix by the time I went to the West Coast, right? Like
Right.
in May. So that was just under a year maybe.
Yeah.
Still a long time to be sitting in the production chair.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's also like my calendar would be basically full of Tom Sluss dates, and then you would go on tour and I would work on other stuff. And then whenever you would be, before you would leave for tour, it was like, all right, well, let's go ahead and start putting dates on the calendar for when I get back from tour, so that basically, for you, it was like, so that I have your studio blocked off so we can come keep working on it when I get home. But it was like that. I mean, I can't imagine the grind that you were on to, be home and be in record world and be like planning and working on the studio or on the beer runs, and then going on the beer runs and being on the beer runs, trying to coordinate what was going on for the studio when you got home. You know what I mean? It was a lot of moving pieces there, Mr. Tom.
It was tough. Thank God for Notion. Shout out Notion.
Yeah.
There was a lot to handle for sure. I try not to like think too much when there's a lot to do. I work better when I'm just doing it.
Right.
And
not thinking about what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like I said, like that mini panic attack before we met, like that was a time where I was like, if I just start doing some things,
yeah,
I think I'll feel better, know? And the first year I spent in Texas, the only thing I was really doing was just trying to get a feel for gigs and playing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was familiarizing myself with everything. But that first trip to Key West, and I met all these people and like felt like, oh, this is the scene, like the Texas scene for the first time. I first brushed with that, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of folks here doing stuff, and I gotta get my shit together. And then it's like, dude, just do something, just do anything. You're like, there's so many different ways to crack the cookie. Is that a phrase?
No, but it is now. Well, yeah, and it's interesting too because like your reference. So to kind of call back to something that you said earlier about how you were having the panic attack, and then you came to me, or then we met or whatever, and I'm seeing you as this super organized person, and you said like you're the only one that knows what's under the hood or whatever, however you said that. I think you probably had a similar experience where you come to Texas and you see all these artists who are doing all this stuff or whatever, but none of them really have it that much more together, bro. Like maybe they got a manager, maybe they got, their spouse helping or whatever, but like most people, it seems like we're all just kind of fucking flying by the seat of our pants, dude. And I think the part of the reason I'm saying that is because they're all doing the thing that you said where they're just doing it,
Yeah. I mean, it's a relief, honestly, to get to once you see that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're all just winging it. That's great.
Yeah.
Some people have, if you have a few more resources, or you have a team, or you have even just some kind of, a thing you can hang your hat on, like a great streaming song or a song on a TV show or whatever, like those help. Of course, everything helps, but you still don't know what the path is in this line of work. You don't know what you're going to write tomorrow. So you don't know what you're going to be marketing 6 to 10 months from now,
Everything's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
I feel like even if you're, Lady Gaga or Billie Eilish or Foo Fighters or whatever massive stadium touring band, like even those people are dealing with the same, type of, like, I don't mean like the same type of problems. I just mean like the challenges are the same challenges, just on a different scale, So anyways, to the original point, which is it's impressive to see how you're managing this whole thing, even down to developing a color palette for your album and then finding a couch that fits within the confines of that color palette.
Well, I don't question when fate just has it that way. I mean, Clifton might have found this space before I did, but he was the one who kind of helped, and we should give shout outs to some folks, but Clifton Jennings Road on the executive production, the art direction for the record, many other hats he's worn too. But he had this idea of kind of mixing rust red with this blush pink, this ballerina pink. And this couch just came out of nowhere. I swear to God. Eden is the woman who owns this space here that we're in Fort Worth. And I was looking on Peerspace. I was telling Zach, like, a lot of these spaces are gaudy, and they're like, you know, they're for like boudoir shoots, and they're for, you know, like, I mean, real like model shoots, you know.
Right.
But I was like, I'm not going to be doing the George Costanza pose on this couch, you know, like I'm going to be trying to, you know, get a vibe out of this that relates to what I'm putting out. And it just, you know, I think there's like synchronicity. I try never to question. I just roll up. It's like when this couch came out, when this whole room, I was like, okay, just book it.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions when things work out.
Yeah. It's, the couch just told you what to do, man, you know, which that's the best in life, you know, is when the couch just tells you what to do, you know?
Yeah.
I wish the couch told me what to do more often.
Well, there is a lot of, I've heard those videos with couches. That,
God.
What? Last week on the Tom Slush Show. I make that sound all the time, and I hope people imagine like the logo zooming in and spinning out of like on an old superhero show. Like, I don't know if
Wayne's World.
like Wayne's World or like
Yeah.
just like the old Batman cartoons or something like
Yeah.
that. Like just super campy transition.
I wish that stuff would make a comeback.
The campiness.
Yeah, dude.
It's all overly serious.
I think everybody is like, I mean, me and Zach were talking last night about all these, you know, color packs for video filters and
Right.
all this stuff, and everybody's trying to like do a thing without really doing a thing. And sometimes I just wish art was less snooty and more just like, you know, like what happened. Like you look at a Foo Fighters music video and like they're not taking themselves seriously, and that's what's fucking cool about it. And I wish more people were doing that type of stuff. And maybe they are, and I'm just not hip to whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I like tackiness when done well, you know?
I think earnest is the word I would use. Like, cause I think like, I was thinking of the TV shows and stuff, but talk about like movies. What I think today, what you have are either movies that are like too serious for their own good, too preachy, or trying to make some point, or they know that they're kind of stupid, so they're like winking at you and be like, we know it's stupid too. But like Adam West Batman didn't act like he was stupid. It was just like but it was fun and it was funny and it was for the sake of the fact that it's fun to do. But they were earnest in like making it. Like it wasn't, they weren't winking at the camera being like, look how stupid I look. It's just they're doing fun and silly things because it's fun to do fun and silly things.
Right.
Be all in on fun and silly instead of being like, oh, look, we're being fun and silly. Because I think it's a response, honestly. I think the reason why they wink at the camera is because they know, whoa, I know we should be really serious right now, but we're just being fun and silly for a moment here. We're going to get back to being overly serious in a minute.
Right. It's like, if you just own it in a genuine way, then people will respond to that. But if you're halfway in, then people are going to know that you're halfway in. And I think that in general, it's like you're saying, like it's like polars, you know, like nobody's doing, well, I'd also say this, like, not to get too political or whatever, but like I do think there's a certain component of like not being able to be funny in certain ways because people are extra sensitive these days. And that's not to say like I'm not trying to, you know, respect people's whatever they have going on, but
You just want to get canceled.
I mean, I think it's inevitable at some point, but I just, you know, like you can't make, I mean, I love all those Judd Apatow movies, and I don't feel like they can really make those movies anymore, and that's kind of a bummer. And they were doing that thing where they were like, we know this is dumb, we know this is goofy, but that's why it's funny, you know?
That's like Ron Burgundy takes himself seriously in the movie.
Right.
Like, but he's a ridiculous character.
Right.
Which there's something funny about the earnestness of that from a production standpoint. I think like I don't know how I come across sometimes when I share things on my Instagram story, but like last night I shared something about, you know, us being on this, you know, ball of rock spinning through space and how crazy that is, you know? And like, look, I'm a little bit self-aware. I think I can see how someone would be like, dude, Tom, like, yeah, of course we know that. Okay. We're all wrestling with our own existential dread here. But I honestly think that that's the smile that we're like, we're going to be goofy. We're going to be funny here.
Right.
The whole situation's funny.
Right.
What is happening
Well,
right now?
and you get one shot, so why are you going to spend so much time? Not saying that I'm not guilty of it in my own stuff too sometimes, but like, why are you going to spend so much time worrying about like, oh, I don't know, man, like, do I look cool? I don't know, dude. Do you think people are going to like this? Like, just write the fucking chicken wing song. And do it. Write the Florida Beach song and put it out, because if people are gonna hate it if you take it seriously or not. Some people are gonna fucking hate it. So why not take a shot and do something fun? You know, I think what you're saying with the whole like have some fun thing. I think that's what I wish, because I want to see more shit like that. You know.
Yeah, and I also think people hating it, but it's also like, some people definitely will hate things you do, but questioning, I think, is the thing where a lot of people are more afraid of, is because it's not that people are going to hate it, but people are going to question whether, oh, are you sure that's the right thing to do?
Right.
Are you sure that's what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not sure if it's the right thing I'm supposed to be doing. Are you sure that you're doing all the right things?
Right.
No one's sure. So
Right.
I'm just going to do the thing that lights me up, makes me feel excited about tomorrow, and like that I feel, especially with like, well, the chicken wing song was born out of these sessions.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
like, we were having fun,
Right.
getting ready to eat. Well, you could give me 50,
Yeah.
but we were only going to eat 23.
Right.
But, you know, we were just getting ready to eat some wings. And like, that's so great that that's something that you're going to lean into. I don't know if we're going to leak that. We'll maybe add this in post, but you're going to lean into this because it's like, we deserve to have some fun here. We deserve to be, and especially artists, like, I think there's a time and place to be serious. I think there's a time and place to focus on activism and things that you care about, and whether it's faith or whether it's politics. And there's things on this record for sure about that. Like, I'm not hiding from that, but it's all just this random occurrence we find ourselves in, sharing this time together. And
Right.
I think if we embrace the unusual nature of that, it'll make the harder to swallow pills a lot easier to swallow. It makes the hard stuff easier to wrestle with when we can get self-aware enough to realize we're all on this crazy ride. It's like a circus, you know?
Right.
This ride ends for all of us.
Right.
And let's have fun, let's love, let's sing, let's dance.
Yeah. Right. Definitely. I mean, I think on this album, you have both of those things. You know what I mean? You have fun, slightly cheeky songs like Caffeine Queen, which we can continue the conversation about that song at another time. But
whole podcast for that one.
For that one song, yeah, we can have that debate. But it's either way, like your perspective on that song or my perspective on that song, it's still a fun song.
Yeah.
But you can have that song and Two Americas on the same album, and like I feel like other artists, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular legitimately, but other artists would be like, well, how can we have one album that's a sexy, you know, kind of tongue-in-cheek song, and this, you know, heady, you know, not politically driven, but
If he's thinking record like 50 hours, so I didn't think it was that close. We're back.
like 50 hours? I don't understand.
Gigabytes, dude. 45 hours.
Okay. I want to jump off on that point. I don't know how much of that we got, but I do want to just put this on the camera for the record. The debate we're referring to on Caffeine Queen, just to pose this to anyone who ends up watching this, is take a listen to this song when it comes out if you know it already. But is this song, to me, it's the song about the love of your life. But to Timmy here, it's a floozy song.
You're really setting me up by hitting the Timmy in there. Tommy thinks it's a serious love song, and Tim thinks it's a floozy song.
Tom
it's
Sless.
I think that's a gross oversimplification of the debate on both sides. I think that going like as we were making the song, there were discussions. Actually, this probably is one of the handful of turmoil moments where we're talking about what needs to happen with the music to personify the lyrics properly, and that was when the debate started of like, okay, well, what's happening at the core of this song? And to me, a caffeine high doesn't last very long, and some of the lyrics in the song feel temporary, feel not even temporary, they feel in the moment. They don't feel long lasting.
Right.
You know, it's not like, you know, I'll have this cup of coffee forever. You know.
Well, yeah, and we're not going to litigate this here, but it's just it's a hard disagree, because if you have a caffeine addiction, you're hitting the pot 2-3 times a day.
Or 4 pots if you're Zach in one day.
Well, we know Zach's a ladies' man.
It's true. I mean, yeah. Anyways, to the original point, which is
We'll leave that at that for everybody.
which is I think that artists can have more fun, and not just artists, like people in the business world. I think they take themselves too seriously. I think people in general these days take themselves too seriously on not all fronts, on a lot of fronts. And this is not me saying this because I'm not guilty of it myself. I'm just making the commentary because I feel like maybe if people took themselves less seriously, people would have more fun. That's pretty much the gist of what I was driving at there.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple thoughts on that. I think a quick thought just on maybe the way artists view art. If you're not, I feel like something that helped us with this record was that having all these different vibes on the record is just knowing, to me, like I kind of recognize and validate all those different parts of me on a day-to-day basis, like, or at least try to, like, you know, always we're speaking from the most modest we can. I mean, I try to sort through, like, you know, I feel like happy and funny, but I also care deeply about certain things. And I also am spiritual and get into weird headspaces about cosmos and time. And I find it really authentic to honor all that on the record. And that's, I think, what helped us, or at least helped me get around, you know, yeah, these songs can be all different because I'm not just one type of person. I do have a thought on that other part, though. It's like about people taking things really seriously. And I've thought a lot about whether, or like how, to what degree insecurity drives like a lot of how we act in the world. It's food insecurity or money insecurity, or just like, you know, insecurity of like who I am, or identity insecurity. Yeah. I think insecurity drives a lot. And I feel like when you feel like things are tight, it makes it difficult to see the struggle. I mean, I feel like there's so many stories of this archetype from like the father in the Great Depression era who was just like cold, you know, that you've seen that in old movies, and it's like, sure, he sits at the head of the table and he doesn't speak except to tell you that, you know, bow your head for grace, you know, this kind of archetype. And I imagine to have sympathy for that character, that archetype is just like, it's a hard world, and maybe they went to war and they saw really terrible shit, and it's just, it makes it difficult to be light when things feel so heavy. But I agree with you. It's like we all share in that heaviness by being here, and we can therefore share in the joy as a counteracting force if we choose to.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that first of all, very well said, I agree. I think one of the things that I was like kind of thinking about as I was driving over here, just kind of anticipating what this conversation was going to be like, is like, I think something that this album does very well, when a commentary is made, a lot of the commentary is like, why can't more than one thing be true at the same time? Which is something that I have been trying to be more cognizant of and like add that to my daily life of like, okay, like I can feel more than one way at one time, and I can think more than one thing at one time, and I can believe more than one thing at one time. And those two things may at their extremes be contradictory, but like I can take my life seriously and have fun at the same time. I can write a serious song and a song about chicken wings, like, and I think that this album comments on that type of thing well. I think that there's a lot of like, you can want this thing and be okay with someone wanting that thing at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, I think we get limited by words being able to only really describe specific things at once. Like, yeah, I mean, you could feel, I mean, this is something that happened to me when I first moved to California, but you can feel like the super highs and the super lows all at once. And yet there's only a word for happy or sad. And there's some words in between, but we don't think about the fact that like you can be really distressed or upset or sad while also showing up at a friend's house, showing up at your house and being like, but this is a place of love, and I'm going to allow this love to seep into me here and not, and allow myself to feel happy here because I also am happy about having these people in my life or, anything like that. And yeah, I think to feel like truth has to be, or even is a specific thing. I don't know if we talked about this before, but like, it feels like there's this desire today with the internet and with the connectiveness of the world to prove everything specifically right, because we do have a lot of information at our fingertips, but I think it's a fool's errand because I think truth is, we were just talking about this act, like truth is like a feeling more than it's a specific set of facts. When you live a true life, you can feel what that is, but it's not because you said true things per se. It means you acted truly. And I'm still unpacking this, but I wonder what you think about that. Or wherever I left off, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a super interesting thing to pose. I mean, I think that there are undeniable truths
right
in the universe.
Like the earth is flat.
Correct.
Right.
And Jeff Bezos is our illimitable super being that rules us all.
Yeah.
That's undeniable, mm-hmm. Right? But yeah, I mean, I think it's like to an extent, obviously, but like that's a tough thing to. I mean, as you said, you're still unpacking it. I'm trying to unpack it in an instant, which is difficult. But it's like, I think if you just walk with, it's like that The Road.
The book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that book.
There's a line in that book where the kid is they're going through, and I can't remember the exact moment, but they're going through, and the dad says to the kid when I don't want to spoil the ending, but there's a tragic moment at the end, and the dad says to the kid, "You're going to be okay because you carry the fire." Right? And what he's saying is like, I've taught you to do good and to be good and to go into the world and try and, to the best of your ability, make the world, as cheesy as it sounds, make the world a better place, not just with your large imprints, but with your small imprints, how you treat someone that you're passing by that you're never going to see ever again, or your waiter at the Chili's before the Cowboy game, and you make it a point to tell them thank you when you don't have to, like, I know that seems like such a trivial thing, but it's like that to me is walking a true life, is picking up, it's hard to encapsulate the whole thing, and you listing tiny examples seems stupid, but putting your shopping cart away in the thing.
Well, it's honoring other people and honoring yourself as as an other person to someone. I mean, like seeing yourself within other people, like that's why you put the shopping cart away, because when you go to the supermarket, you want the shopping cart to be where it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's what, I mean, you know, that's the, we live in a society, right? Like that's where
Sure.
that comes from. But I think that's what I'm kind of getting at too with this living a true life. It's not about knowing per se whether the world is round or flat. Just saying, it's not for debate. No, but let's maybe not stay on the Flat Earth Society's list here. The recommended podcasts for the Flat Earth Society. But there's a bunch of facts and there's things we can know about the world, and physics is a marvelous science. But it's like to decide to do the right thing isn't something it's something you live. It's something you act out, and that's what I'm not wrestling, but just kind of working through just after this conversation with Zach at breakfast today, and trying to feel that out. Like, what is the difference between like that lived truth and what our conception of like truth is in the culture of fact checking and internet and, all these different sources and media. And it's just because it's so hard to find out what's true, what is actually true. And maybe it's just living truthfully is what's actually true.
Yeah. I dig the hell out of that. We've got some work to do on clarifying that a little bit more, I think. But, I mean, at least for the sake of words. But, I mean, like, I definitely feel what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was something like Zach told a story. I'm going to paraphrase it, Zach. But he told a story about, like, he accidentally knocked a bowl or something over at a house at Airbnb and felt bad about it. But, no one saw him do it. So there was a time frame, I forget how long, it might have been, I don't know, maybe a day or something. But point is, he like didn't tell anyone. And he was just like, started to eat him alive because he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do about this. Like, I feel terrible, but no one saw me. But he's like, I have to come clean. And as soon as he told the people he was staying with, hey, when this comes up, the Airbnb, like, I broke it. Just let me know what they say. And when he told the truth, he felt the truth.
Right.
And there's something about that, like, that's not about who broke the bowl and whether they know it was Zach. I mean, they probably would have found your fingerprints, but it's
depends on how well he broke the bowl, though.
Right. And I don't know if he tried to put it back together either. He might have tried, but point is, the feeling of telling the truth is that to Zach was like, I know that was true.
Right.
Like, that made me feel better to have done that. And I don't know, that's, like, if you're guilty of something truly, like, that, then of course you're going to feel a little bit better telling the truth. But I think it goes for things that you're not just guilty for. Also, it could just be there's something with doing the right thing that you're not just doing it because it's a ticket to heaven. It actually feels better to do it. Yeah. In this present moment.
Right.
Yeah. And
right.
It's interesting to, I think if you can run your day-to-day actions and through that filter, I think you end up leading yourself towards more beautiful moments. And I can't imagine it. I mean, tragedy besets everybody, but it's just that I feel like if you feel good about what you're doing, you feel like it's I don't know, engaging with others and invigorating others, it has to be right.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It's hard for me to comment because you've said it so well. But I think the challenge is, it's easy to clean up the bowl. It's easy to pick up the trash. It's easy to put the shopping cart away. It's a lot harder to tell the people that you broke the bowl. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I mean, maybe just a way to thread this back to
real quick. I'm now. I'm like, dang, dude. Who do I need to tell that I did something wrong? I'm over here like, did I break a proverbial bowl in the Airbnb, and I need to come clean about it? I'm like, now you've got me. This is I'm shook over here, boys. Trying to think of my bowls.
This is actually Tim Light, your tribunal we've set up here, and we're going to have you confess.
Yeah, who's coming? Who's in that room back there, okay?
Bring him out.
Who's about to come in and be like, "Oh, we know what you did. We know what you said."
It's Tim Allen.
Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I like that a lot. I like the feel the truth thing. I like that a lot. And now my drive home is going to be rough because I'm just going to be thinking about that the whole way home, you know? But no, I think if I can make this about me for just 1 second here, okay?
All right. Jeez.
I think I'm gonna go into the cliche thing of when I became a father, and that was, I think, when that kind of thing. Not to say that I wasn't like actively trying to live the truth before then, but I think that once Fred came into the picture, I was like, okay, like now I have to live this truth. And this is the similar thing from the road, the book, where he's lived this way as an example for his child. Like now I have to. I feel this not only moral obligation, but like this parental obligation to live a certain way so that my kid doesn't go out in the world and not tell the people that he broke the bowl at the Airbnb, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, like one thing your fatherhood has stuck with me. It's been a huge part of us getting to know each other, is that you're so present as a father, despite being so busy.
Thank you.
And it's, as someone who wants to be a father someday too, it's rubbed off on me in a lot of positive ways. There was a time that you said around the table at Shadowwood where you said, a goal of mine, and I never heard anyone say this with respect to parenting, but it was like a goal of mine. It's to like never raise my voice to, or have my child hear me with my voice raised. And it came from like a place of just wrestling with your own temper in the past and history there and all that. Don't have to get into the specifics, but just hearing you verbalize your commitment to that, making that truth, essentially, making that a true experience for Freddie, for number 2 coming on. Oh, yeah. Did I break the seal on that?
I think when this gets when this gets published, then that will be the first public.
We also don't have to. We'll bleep out number 2 there.
No. It's
the plane flying by, the whole banner.
Yeah.
Number 2.
No, we did not get a banner. I haven't even made any sort of social media post or anything about it at all. But yeah, that specific thing that you're referring to with Fred is a day-to-day challenge. Like, and it's not even just with him specifically. Like when he does something wrong. I mean, right now it's easy because he doesn't really know the difference. Like the quote unquote like discipline that's going on right now is not the kind of discipline that's worthy of raising your voice anyways, you know what I mean? But it's other situations, like when I'm driving and someone else on the road is behaving poorly, my natural inclination is to raise my voice and utter swear words. And that's a difficult thing to control, So,
well, what I wanted to make a point on that was that hearing you say that and be aware of that commitment made me see the way you approached everything you do in a different light, because it to me, it showed this like really heightened consciousness of not letting certain things affect my ability to be the person I want to be, period. You know? And so when we work together, or when we're coming up with ideas, or when we're just, getting to know each other or planning things out, it's like I saw in you, like, and that was maybe 3 or 4 months in, I was like, oh, this is a guy who wants the best for the situations he's in with the people he's in them with. And despite the fact that there are things that he's like subconsciously working through and holding on to, or just there, it's not like you're this perfect person who's got it all figured out, who knows how to work in these spaces. It's like I'm constantly focused on making the best of these moments. And And it's just, and I related to that because it's the same way I try to approach the things I'm in too. I know where some of the pitfalls I have with getting hyper focused on things or getting too hung up on a specific detail, or and just seeing you say that in another part of your life, it totally made me see you as like way fuller as a person too.
Yeah. Well,
And it's how open you are about it.
Yeah,
It's cool.
I appreciate that. I mean, in tandem with the truth thing, it's like, obviously you can't be a completely open book with everyone about everything all the time, but like being more open makes you more human, in my opinion. And I also think that in the setting of making a record or recording a song with someone, at least the setting that I like to be in, I think it's a super intimate experience. I also think that recording music is a very rare experience. Like the fact that we get to be around it all the time is a great gift that I'm honored to go through and experience that whole thing. And so I think being open with the people that you're collaborating with makes for better art, because then you all have a better understanding of not only the art that you're making, but each other. And I don't know, I think that makes for a better experience for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a blessing to have the opportunity to record and put your thoughts to music. I tell people who say they have no musical skill, don't sell yourself short. I know there's only one guy on stage right now at this brewery, but like, you listen to music, you tap into that just like I do.
Right.
And so we're happy to be in a position to make this, but
yeah,
we're all, music is this beautiful thing that we can all tap into. And yeah, it's super lucky
yeah,
to be able to have these experiences and work with the people we get to work with.
Yeah. I mean, it's in terms of the anyone can make music thing. I mean, making music, becoming a musician, whatever, it's just like anything else. Like, it just takes a lot of time. You can be anyone can, within reason, can be an athlete. You know what I mean? It just takes a lot of work. Same with music, same with being a photographer, a videographer. Like, no one is like inherently born with some gift. I mean, sure, you may grow up in a musical household, or you may grow up with a bodybuilder dad, or you may grow up with a photographer for a parent or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like those things may affect your path, but like anyone can do it,
Yeah, and I think even if it's not music, there's definitely something I love to drive home, is that there are no creatives and non-creatives.
Right.
There's just people who have creativity, and like I said, it's like this well. We all have access to this well, and sometimes you have to really put the pail real low to dig something up because you don't use it like a lot. But I think everyone has the capacity to create something, anything, and I think that's I really love to just promote the idea that don't limit yourself if you've never played a guitar, or you've never written a page in your life, or you don't paint, all these markers of creatives. It's like, first of all, think of all the beautiful memories you've probably created with friends of yours and things like that. That's creating something. But second, like, if you start doing it, you'll start,
Right.
Anyone can you just got to be creating. I think, when you get into this line of work, you have to keep constantly creating.
Right.
And, that's the only difference, is we're constantly creating.
Yeah.
And, I think it's great though. I think it's great. I do want to talk a little bit about the folks who helped with this record and just give a little bit of shout outs and stuff,
Yeah.
One guy's name has come up a lot, is Zach, who's behind the cameras today, but Zach was
the Moff Man.
A new friend of mine, Zach Moffatt, new friend of mine. When I met Tim, how long y'all had been working together before that? I guess, since then. Make it easy on you.
I think the first time me and Zach actually met was when I flew him down to film for my record, right?
First time we met was the help with a little help.
Oh, that's right. Duh. The lowdown stuff. Yeah, that's right. They flew me in to do the stuff with Leroy and Dalton, and that's when we met. But like, so I guess that was 2020. Yeah, 2020. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a lot of interesting and fun moments to share over the next couple months that Zach captured in the first early goings of our sessions, and also obviously helping with this and some other videos that we've made together. It's like so cool to rewatch some of those moments. It's the serendipity of some of those lightning bolt ideas that you and I just jockey and throwing here's a this, here's a this, here's a this, and rewatching it like a fly on the wall has been, Zach showed me a handful of videos. It's so cool to re-witness. And it's so grateful to have had you there.
Yeah. I can't wait to see some of those because as much as I remember some of the particular moments, there's probably a lot of stuff that's on there that's worthy of watching again that I don't remember at all. And
I mean, I will say, I don't want to tease it. I'll just tell you, we don't have to post this part of the podcast, but there's a clip of us figuring out that G over A chord in Vultures.
Mm-hmm.
And watching it, I was like, it felt scripted because of like how much it was like there was like build up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was just exactly how it happened.
Right.
Either,
So what about this? Okay. What about this? What about this? And then it becomes,
I mean, that was cool. It like Zach, just capturing it, but it was like, I literally felt scripted. I was like, this can't be happening. It feels like it was written to just be like that.
It's all AI generated.
Zach's like, I don't know why you're giving me so much credit. Thank ChatGPT and DALL-E.
Well, yeah, I can't wait to see that. I think someone else that we've already mentioned that I think deserves a ton of praise and credit in this whole process is definitely Clifton. I can't wait for him to hear this and watch this because I'm going to talk about my initial experience with Clifton right now, which was I did not understand. Like we had done the Zoom meetings and like I was like, okay, I like this guy. Like he's really cool. He's got good ideas. Like I'm like, okay, but like no artist that I had ever worked with had a team like that. So I was so used to just like, okay, I've got to figure out all this stuff and I've got to help them with everything, and or they know where they want to take it, but that's not part of this process. But like with you, everything has been just all one, just like living, breathing thing. And Clifton is very much a part of that and continues to be a part of that. And when he first came down and when we were working on stuff, after having worked on the songs for so much, and he comes in and he has all these thoughts and these ideas, and I'm just like trying to wrap my mind around it. And at first I was like, I think it was like, the new kid at school, you're like, whoa, what do you mean you live here now? You go to school here? You don't go to school here. We have a whole thing going on here,
We already have a you.
Which is funny because I was that guy, not Clifton. You guys had already been the school, and I was the new kid at school, but we had just been working down at Shadowwood, and he wasn't there. And so I was so, like, I was just like, I had to adjust. And eventually I did, and I'm really glad I did because I, now being on the other side of it, totally get it. And I wish I could have Clifton on every single project that I'm involved in because I think that he's brilliant. But yeah, Clifton, much love and mad props, and yeah.
Yeah, I definitely felt like the guy bringing his college friends to hang out with his home friends,
Mm-hmm.
and like being like, and like, I'm a little different with my home friends, or something like that. And I don't even know which one of you is the home friend, because the funny thing is, like, I was living in Texas. I was seeing you all the time,
right? And
yet I have known Clifton, a couple more years than I've known you. So it was funny to me. I was almost like, I'm just gonna let this happen, and
yeah.
I was so glad, like, especially once it got to the point too that y'all were having conversations fluidly about just other stuff and not just shooting the shit, but like, you know, you were both willing to get into details, vulnerability, future outlook, art, all these things that I had conversation with both of you with.
Right.
And then now you're having your own conversation about it that I'm like, oh, what are you guys talking about?
Right.
Like, I was like, this is just, I love that this is working. You know, I was so glad that and hey, shout out also to Frank and Alex for being there that whole week as well.
Yeah.
But that was, you know, it was a lot of great weeks, but that was a really great week in the whole process.
Yeah. That was incredible having everyone, that whole group all there at the same time. And that week feels like it happened in an instant at this point. At the time, I was like, we were in the trenches and it was a lot of work. And it was like every day I was waking up like, dang, dude, like we were up till like 2 a.m. last night, like back up with Fred. Like I was grinding really hard. We all were, obviously. And like you said, props to Frank and Alex, because there was a lot of time spent, I think, where they were just kind of like, what the fuck are you guys talking about right now? Why are you guys talking about all this stuff? Like, what, like we're busting out, you know, Notion, and there's all these parameters, and we're arguing about this, or not arguing, but you know, we're going at it. We're going at it over
the Hydra,
these,
you know,
these details that they're probably like, and I don't want to put words in their mouth or whatever, but like they're probably just like, I don't know why you guys care so much about these things, but I think that they were all important things to care about.
Well, yeah. Well, Frank Fruhan and Alex Creamer, both of them Nashville artists on the record, friends of mine that I met right before I met you. It was like that early part of 2022. A lot of people who are big parts of my life became parts of my life. It was really beautiful to look back on that time. And, you know, having them there, I think, yeah, me, you, and Clifton were a bit of a Hydra trying to bite each other's necks off.
For sure.
But having one shared body, so, you know, we can't kill ourselves. But like, I think having them there was honestly a bit of a mediating energy too. They were like listening and engaging, and then, you know, we'd be like, so what do you guys think? And they'd be like, well, and then they had something to say too.
Yeah,
and, you know, it's like great to have people like that in the room too, because it's tough when that was when we were picking the name for the record.
Right.
We were really dialing in on a lot of, and the track listing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was a formative set of sessions. And yeah, I think having their energy there too probably kept us from getting too deep, because they were like, sitting there watching it. We're like, okay, let's put this back together a little bit, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of like, okay, we've just spent 3 hours and maybe we made some progress. Well, time will tell, but let's get back to singing and whatever else it is that you guys are actually here for right now.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So that helped keep it on track in that regard too. But that week was dope. And interestingly enough, it was, I think, one of the only times, one of the few times that we were working on your record that RG wasn't there.
That's so true. I was going to say unsung hero of this entire process.
1,000,000%.
RG3, Ryan
Well,
Glenn.
He's the unsung hero of every project that I make, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man. And
but yeah, it's man, not having him there, but had him. I mean, man, there was so many times some of the more, this ties into this, this idea we kind of referenced, but this We Can Have It All. I mean, in September when you had to miss those sessions, it was just Zach and Ryan and me
and Clint.
But we also had a day that was just us.
That's right. Acoustic day.
Yeah. And man, it was great. Like having him in the chair. I mean, he was like, he's just an ideas guy, and he knows, he knows how to be in so many different roles, and he understands himself really well. He's just a great creative partner too, Ryan Glenn.
Yeah. I mean, I came back from Wisconsin and I was like, what the hell did you guys do? Like, not in a bad way, in like a sick, okay. Like, we've really like reached into this new echelon of this record at that point, you know?
Well, that's like a little run and got weird when
Right.
you were gone.
Uh-huh.
And then it got weirder,
Yeah.
which was great.
Yeah.
But it didn't get weird at the beginning. And we started doing weird stuff with the paper guitar. And we
Right.
did some weird
That
stuff with
biscuit
the biscuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one point where RG put a microphone in your dryer
Right.
to try to record some reverb from the piano.
Right.
I want to say.
Yep.
That was
Uh-huh.
a totally different room.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like having someone like he's also, RG's so knowledgeable about like recording techniques and technical engineering
Yeah.
shit that, but he's also simultaneously very creative.
Well, yeah, he doesn't let that get in the way of the creation.
No, exactly. So he's an ideas guy, and he also is like, well, we could try this crazy thing and we just set this up, and like I love that kind of energy too. Having that third, a lot of sessions were just the three of us,
Right. Right.
and having that third person that's simultaneously technically knowledgeable and creative to pair with,
and an artist as well. So
Right.
once again, tied in with the whole thing.
yeah, understands
Yeah.
just the idea of your baby songs of the baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, irreplaceable, Ryan Glenn.
Those RG sessions for me, watching him sit in the commander's chair and just like be Tim, playing Tim for the day, playing Dad for the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's a really good take. Let's try it one more time. Do one more time on
Yeah.
that. Just seeing RG take that through, it was impressive.
Yeah.
It was impressive to see him.
Yeah.
See him in that light. I'll pick it up on these mics.
okay.
Yeah.
It'll be one of those weird spots where you hear the producer talking over.
I actually love that.
Yeah, it's not that RG needs any validation from me, but I definitely came home from I left for Wisconsin. It was a very emotional experience for sure, and I definitely left with a lot of concern about, like, not that I had any doubts in RG, but just like, I'm just going to relinquish, once again, I'm just going to trust, and I'm just going to relinquish control because those were some super vital sessions. I mean, there was but a lot of the songs that you guys worked on while I was gone were what are now the singles on the record. And it's like, okay, well, do good work, guys. Like, I'll see you when I get back.
Daddy's coming home in 2 days.
Yeah, and I came home and didn't know what I was going to open up, and I opened it up, and I was like super relieved and super proud of RG for, crushing it. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it's not that I didn't have faith in him. It's just you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you had the opposite of not having faith. You had faith and just like, let go and trusted.
Yeah.
That was crucial. It was crucial. And yeah, you mentioned Clint and, so many fantastic instrumentalists on the record, like Clint and Drew Herrickle, who we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And, of course, Ryan Stogner, who was there.
Yeah.
From the first days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ambient life.
That Caffeine Queen bass line, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Just sold it. I remember that was another one of those moments where it kind of back to one of the very early things we were talking about, where I could trust that I could go get Fred and know that progress was happening. And I remember coming back and that bass line being the thing. And I was like, which one of you guys figured this out? And Ryan was like, oh, I figured it out. Big deal. It's pretty cool or whatever. But whenever I heard it, I was like, oh, I didn't know Tom had a bass line for this song this whole time. But turned out it was old ambient, it's Lambo.
Yeah, I mean, and also like that's what I love too. I mean, that happened during those sessions, but like Ryan jumps in with a bass line for the verse, and then that opens up ideas for me. And like It's the same. Like I said, it's that well where It's just like that's an idea that in some other timeline feels like an idea I'd come up with, but it's not. I'm not trying to say it's stolen glory. It's like it's simpatico is what it is.
Right. Exactly.
That's which I appreciated so much throughout this process. There was so many. Everybody who was involved, Taylor coming in on those 2 slide songs,
right,
and like just nailing that,
right,
just knowing what to do on those.
Yeah,
I have to do the liner notes this month in the next couple days.
It's a long list.
Yeah,
Jordan Carr on all the trumpet stuff, and then, Scarlett, Bree, Lexi, and Carlo on the strings.
Yeah, I'll be definitely hit you up for some names, but
and Andrea and Yolanda and Keisha.
Mm-hmm.
You got like 30 people on this deal, bro.
It's a big list. Yeah. Big list of people who came through 2912,
Yeah.
But
and
yeah.
also taking it to Brad's to do the vocals
Mm-hmm.
and him mixing. Well, some of the vocals, obviously.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
just so many great folks in it. And along the way, it was all just good energies. And I think, some of these people that came in were friends of mine, and a lot of them were people you've worked with before. And, but everyone came in with that shared sense that we shared from the start. Right. And I think that helped the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Very little ego, openness, unrelenting creativity. I think there was just every stop of the way felt like that.
I think everyone that we brought in very quickly identified that, okay, these are great songs that I just need to figure out how to do whatever it is that I can do to make them what they need to be. And that was pretty much the only priority,
Yeah. I mean, we really did have this mantra. We embraced it. It was, we can have it all. We kept saying it through and through. It's now the name of the group chat that you, me, Clifton, and of course Russ.
Yeah, it's
Russ shares.
Russ.
We did not. Yeah, we haven't dropped Russ's name in yet. We'll dedicate a whole hour to Russ. But this mantra of just deciding, not even. It's not even that we believed we could have it all per se. We just decided we were going to.
Well, and I think that that's one of those things like, okay, well, the truth is we can't have it all. But the truth that we walked throughout the thing was that we could, and we got everything we needed on the album, except for one thing. There's only one thing that we didn't get, which is a children's choir, but that's okay.
That's fine.
But I mean, as much as whatever that thing is you can get, we got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like exactly. It was living through it and deciding like we're gonna go for it. We're not gonna sell ourselves short because we're just gonna accept. Well, of course we can't have it all, so we shouldn't even try. It's like we're just gonna act like we're gonna get it all. Mm-hmm. Act like it's all gonna work out. And yeah, so we couldn't find 30 kids to sing in what's it called, interpretation of America the Beautiful.
Right.
That's fine.
It's also kind of a tall ask.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of permission slips.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have any authority to grant permission.
Definitely not.
Freddie was older. We could have sang him 30 times.
30 times, but you would have had to get him a lot of yogis.
Yeah.
To make that happen, dog.
I need more yogi.
Lifetime supply of yogis for Fred in order to sing that 30 times.
Can you imagine coming back to Tay like, Tay, listen, we got all the takes we need. However, we need to provide Freddie with a lifetime supply of yogis. Which I guess, to get meta, I feel like you are giving him a lifetime supply of yogis, but up to the age of 18, then he'll have to get a job and buy his own yogis.
Look, if Fred's still drinking yogis at 18, bro, I've not done my job, okay? That kid needs to be eating yogurt by that time.
Protein shakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If he's not eating, I don't know. Look.
He'll probably just be drinking bigger ones.
Oh, yeah, bigger yogi. I'm not going to land. I'm not even going to try. Yogis, whatever. Yeah, he'll be drinking full-grown adult manimals instead of danimals.
That little boy's going to be a manimal. He's gonna.
I mean, look, I can't blame the kid. They are delicious.
You sneak one from time to time?
No, it's just he's covered
in it.
You
don't sneak one?
No, but he's covered in it, and inevitably some will get on my hand, and I'm not going to, it's easier to just, do one of those.
Lick it off, yeah.
Yeah, and it's delicious. It's strawberry banana or kiwi, whatever.
I mean, I'm a yogi guy. I know. Yogi and granola.
Yeah, they're also loaded with sugar, though. I'm sure they can't be good for you. Anything that comes in a bottle that red, not good for you.
You're speaking my mom's language. She said I was allergic to red dye growing up. Dye.
So I'm not going to claim to know the actual science behind this, but apparently there's like an actual thing with red dye and I think yellow dye or whatever, where they've done studies, I guess, where they will, like, I don't know how they monitor it, but like only red dye foods for the kid group, and then like later on no red dye food for the same kids, and there's like a dramatic difference in their behavior.
Yeah, I think my mom's read that same study.
Yeah.
She was like, no Skittles, no
Doritos, no Cheetos.
Yeah.
Which it sucks because it sounds like the good stuff has red dye in it.
Big
Dorito
blue
guy over here.
Big blue dye just wants us to drink and eat more blue stuff. You know, the treacherous blue dye industry, but red dye is where it's at. It's all just conspiracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are the blue dyes people?
Is it the same as red pill, blue pill?
No. I
don't
think
so.
you've got
like Powerade, blue Powerade,
maybe.
or like the Mountain Dew that's blue, like the ice. There's like a ice.
So it's Taco Bell. The
what's that called? A freeze?
Baja Blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Taco Bell's trying to get that dye money.
But then again, don't they have a Doritos Loco Taco?
Ooh.
They're playing both sides, so they come out on top.
Oh, dang.
Taco Bell.
The illusion of choice.
They're the kingpin. Oh, well, I don't know where else. I mean, I think we kind of talked about a lot of good stuff. I do, Russ Merck, also big time team member here, and his consulting engineering brain comes in handy so much in keeping all these threads from getting too tangled.
Yeah, and he also has the unique position of being a Tom Sless fan before anything else.
Yeah. I mean, that's how he came into the game, too.
Exactly.
He pitched me on his I've got to share this with you, but I joke about them with him and Denise all the time about the original Facebook messages he sent me.
Oh, yeah.
From seeing that Ring of Fire video I put out.
Right.
And it's so, he literally goes, at one point, he's like, I've got, many years of music experience. And it's, it's like, I've been working with one artist for a few years. But he was like, I laugh about it because, like, Russ, like, your value in my life has been so much more than whether or not you had music experience.
Right.
Right. Like that's like, the fact that you had a little bit has helped for sure, because at least it's not all completely strange to you. But what's helped me so much with him is like this eagle eye, this we can do it spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, of course, just the fact that he has that whole garage workshop where he built the Van Hudson.
Right.
But it's like his value to this whole project and just this team we have has been way more than any music experience. We've got music experience between you, Clifton, and I.
Right.
What he brings to the table is this eagle eye, this focus on how can we be the best versions of ourselves? What can we do to set ourselves up for success? All things that we can, as detail-oriented computer music warriors, just get in our zones, we can forget about so easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, he also, I remember back to like the song selection, like when we were like, okay, what are the songs that we're going to like pick from?
Mm-hmm.
Because like it was a pretty lengthy list at the beginning, and there were some where, as I had gone through my first pass, where I was like not super into whatever, and Russ was like, this song has to be. I don't even remember what songs they were. I just know that being on the other side of it now, I'm really glad that he was there to fight for those songs, because I would not have picked those songs.
Yeah.
And that's what I guess that's kind of what I was referring to in terms of him being like a fan, is he's not coming at it from I need to produce these songs. He's coming at it from I love these songs.
Yeah, or technical at all.
Right.
It's a feeling,
Right.
purely an emotional appeal
Exactly.
for him, which is, I mean, so useful because it, like I said, like I got lost. I know in my song selection there's like a technical angle I came at for some of them, and it's because we speak the language of music, so we can of course get lost in that area. But yeah, Russ's ability to manage his executive function is
Right.
and he knows himself so truly. Like the only time I've been out to dinner with people his age where the topic of conversation initiated by Russ was, let's all go around the table and talk about what's our biggest insecurity, and then we'll all weigh what we can do about it. And I was like, this is a man who just knows exactly who he is.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it was like it was such a beautiful conversation. It was Denise and I and him, and we talked about it, and it was like a 3-way little therapy session.
Yeah.
And it was over, some tacos, and
The dude is on a constant quest for growth, not only for himself, but for anyone around him. Like he is driven by progress, which I think is beautiful. I think it's great. I wish I was. Obviously, everybody's like that inherently for the most part, but like he's got it dialed, like you're saying,
Well, I wish to be like that when I'm his age,
Right.
twice the age I am now. You know,
Right.
it's like, it's easy to be driven by growth when you have tons of growth ahead of you.
Right.
You're 18, you're 22, you're
Right.
like, the world is my oyster.
Right.
But, we're both in our 30s now, and it's like, it's easy to be like, all right, well, this is it, I guess. And I guess I'll just
Right.
make the most of where I'm at. But there's so much time left. And there's
Yeah.
so much time left. There's always so much time left. And so keeping that focus, that's been super inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. One other person I need to give a shout out to is my lovely wife, Tay, because there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I don't even know that you know about that was going on throughout the entire process of us making your record, just like us keeping the studio alive, and her dedication to making sure that our house was comfortable and the bed was clean for you or whoever else, or there was groceries, or there was food ordered, or there was, she put in the chicken wing order that inspired chicken wings, you know? So like, but there's so many layers to what Tay was doing so that I could do whatever I needed to do to make it so that we could do whatever we needed to do, however you want to say that. But there were definitely some moments where I was like very exhausted, and she would talk me down off the ledge of blowing the whole thing up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, Taylor, you're a champion. I love you. Thank you so much for being such a huge part of Tim and my experience making this record. I told you when you were opening this new studio, we were talking about it's like, it's not your studio.
yeah,
It's a family operation.
right.
And I think that I've said it earlier in this too, and I've said it before. It's like that was a huge part for me, was the atmosphere that y'all created in your home
Yeah,
that happened to be your studio.
yeah.
That's what kept me just wanting more and more.
Well, and basically that entire house was pretty much curated by Tay. Like the vibe of our home, like in terms of like physically, is all her.
Mm-hmm.
So mad props to Tay and her knack for setting a vibe.
Oh yeah. Plus she was so kind. I had to wake up every morning at 8:30 because she works in the office that the bed was in, and like I was fine with that. But like the understanding of just like the fact that like there's a guy in your office, and it's just like he has to get out. And it's like just being cool with it from the get.
Yeah.
The fact that that's just the way it is. That's how we set it up. But there's no like, do your thing, whatever. Just I'm gonna be on the computer, so just probably don't be sleeping.
There's me and her have had countless, I'm going to call them conversations. She's going to disagree and call them something else, but countless conversations of the when we're stressed about money, or we haven't had enough time to spend together, or whatever's going on, and the stress boils up, and then it turns into a argument. I'll just call it what it is, an argument. And you start going back and forth with the, well, you just don't understand the sacrifices that I'm making, and well, you don't understand the sacrifices that I'm making, and not that we play that game very often at all, but when we have, one of them definitely that she brings up every time was, my office is the guest room for all your people that come over. And like, it's not like I'm over exaggerating the way that she says it, but it definitely is a sacrifice for her. You know what I mean? Like, it is a sacrifice for her. So mad props and appreciation to Tay for allowing our studio guests to be in her space that she needs to work,
Yeah, and that's like, I would I'm not great at making my own bed, but I would try to make that bed every time I wake up.
Yeah, I would sleep on top of the covers every time I would have to make bed.
It's not worth it.
You don't have to do that, bro. There's like a folded blanket at the end. I would just pull that over me, and I'm like, that's it. I don't want to mess up this beautiful work of art she has curated.
Yeah.
See, bedtime is too sacred for me to do that, but still, she'd like, you don't have to make it. I was like, look, you're sitting here on your computer, and you're gonna have to look at this unmade bed 8-9 hours today. That's like, that doesn't feel good for me,
Right.
Let alone you.
This one moment when you were out, we were doing the piano session, and Tay, bless her heart, because we were playing the piano in the living room, right? And Fred's down, and she's like, how long are you guys going to be? And I was like, of course, it's going to be loud, and we're going to disturb you going to bed. She just wanted to know how long we're going to be, because she wanted to run a bath, and she didn't want the noise of the water to come in.
Right,
like,
that's
what a...
Yeah.
I was also surprised by that being her reason. I remember that. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing is, like, and it's funny because RG, I think, is the one who's the most tuned into this, but for a long time, I didn't have my iMessage linked to the computer because I didn't want to mess with it, and because even though I work on a computer all the time, I'm not super tech savvy in the inner workings of the computer as much as I am in the inner workings of Pro Tools and console. But when I did finally link my iMessage up or whatever, that's kind of one of the things that I'm talking about when I say like the behind the scenes stuff is like, I would get these texts from her that would say like, is it safe to take a shower? Is it safe to run a bath? Because the water, you can hear the water through the walls. And I would be, head down in the work and not see the text for an hour and a half. And then it's 9:30 at night and she's been waiting to go to bed, and I see the text and I'm like, oh shit. And that's when I'm like, hey guys, let's take 5 so she can run her bath, and not disturb whatever the microphones are. And it's like, obviously it's in the grand scheme of life, it's not that big of a deal. But when that's your life day in and day out, all the fucking time, it's like she's making those sacrifices for me so that we can do this thing, which is one of the reasons that I'm so excited to have the new space where that's not something that we're going to have to worry about anymore. But like those types of little things happen throughout the day all the time. And so I'm eternally grateful that she was willing to accommodate all those kinds of things.
Well, I am too. And I'm eternally grateful for this whole process. I'm eternally grateful for having you helmed this entire thing, Tim. And I can't wait for it to get out there.
Yeah.
It's going to be soon enough.
Same. I've told you this before, but I'll say it on the record. I'm honored to have been a part of this process. I am so proud of the work that we all did, and it took a village to make this album what it is. And I love you, man.
Love you too, man. Let's get this shit on the road.
Hell yeah.
All right. Bye.